Kia ora and welcome back to the Wargaming Den for the last of my 5 battles that took place in Southcon over the Queen's Birthday weekend holiday down here in New Zealand. The last game I'm up against Eugene and his Goblins. The mission we will be playing is Control. Now, if you've looked at any of the previous battle reports, you'll have a fair idea of my army for the tournament now. It's got the 2 Palace Guard regiments, preferred the regiments going into the competition for manoeuvrability over a horde. I've got a horde of Sea Guard, Quicksilver Lancers, which is the upgraded Stormwind Cavalry, a Silver Breeze Regiment, Drakon Riders Horde, an Elven King with a Sharp Blade, so he hits on a 2+, 2 Drakon Lords, one's got the Boomstick, and 2 Wizards, both of them have Lightning Bolt, and one's got the Inspiring Talisman. And here we have Eugene's Goblins. Eugene was another player whose army I really didn't want to face. There was a few of those over the weekend actually, but going into the last day, I knew that it was most likely that I'd play Mark and then Eugene, just the way the draws had worked and who had played who, that Eugene was most likely my opponent in the last round. And he had 3 victories already. So he hasn't played Kings of War in the last couple of years. Another one of the Dunedin gamers had an absolutely awesome game against him and his Goblin hordes, and as you can see, it's quite an interesting army. He's got a horde of rabble and a legion of rabble. It's got 2 regiments of trolls, 2 Fleabag Rider regiments that I wanted to watch out for, having used the Goblin Scout regiments. I knew how dangerous they can be on a flank. A Fleabag Chariot Legion, which I'd not seen before and potentially needed to be looked out for. The bits that I was really worried about, 3 rock throwers or rock lobbers or whatever they're called, 2 war trombones, and just to give his army a little bit of extra muscle, he's got 2 giants and a couple of flaggots. So very different to Josh's goblin list, but those war machines I thought could potentially cause me no end of grief. So I was really looking forward to playing him, but at the same time I didn't really want to face those war machines. So let's have a quick look at deployment. Okay, and as you can see out wide, he's got a unit of Fleabag Riders that could come whizzing around this flank here. He's got a Rock Lobber nearby. He's got some Trolls. He's got his horde of Rebel that are just going to push forward this way. He's got his Legion of Rebel nearby as well. Tucked in behind them, he's got his Rock Lobber. He's got a Flaggot back there. He's got his 2 War Trombones are tucked in behind the Legion as well. Then he's got his heavy hitters out on this flank. He's got the Chariot Legion, which could come zooming through the middle here, through the good going terrain potentially. His 2 giants, another Rock Lobber. He's got his 2nd regiment of Trolls, and out wide he's got his 2nd Fleabag regiment. So pretty much covering the whole board, but he's got some heavy hitting units there backed up by some artillery that were going to be quite hard to neutralize. So I was a wee bit more compact with my deployment this time. I had the King and the Drakon Lord. They were wanting to go around the building this way, maybe take out the Fleabag Riders and see what happened from there. I was wanting to hold the centre with the Sea Guard, peppering the rabble if I could, and then I had the 2 Palace Guard who were going to just hopefully hold the centre and see if they could take the charge from the chariots if need be. On my far right flank, I had my Drakon Horde tucked in behind the woods, as you can see, worried about the war machine, so wanted to try and stay out of line of sight. And same over here, the Quicksilver Lancers and the Silver Breeze, potentially able to come down behind this tall tower of Gordons and get the Fleabag Riders maybe. There's another hill here as well, which helped to block the line of sight. So my deployment was dictated a wee bit by being worried about what those war machines might do if they got lines of sight. Anyway, let's move on and have a look at the first. Let's have a look at the end of the first turn. Might even be the start of the second turn actually. My first turn of actually Eugene got the first turn, just pushed forward with his goblins and his chariots. Didn't really do too much in the way of damage to me. I was keeping hidden. I moved the Sea Guard onto the hill to start peppering. The chariots did a few wounds there. Palace Guard moved in behind the hill here. These other Palace Guard, I think, got hit by war machines and moved back out of range. And I just pushed forward a wee bit here, but staying out of charge range. The trolls had got on top of the hill over there as well. Over this side, I moved the Draken Lord into the pond area, and the king just pushed up in front of it. The idea being to use this building as cover. Then I was going to do a 20-inch move and try and get in and start dealing with some of these war machines. This must be the start of turn 2 because Eugene's sent his flea bags in against the king. They might have done a couple of wounds, didn't kill him or rout him though. Now, a bit of an apology here going into the last game. I was a bit tired and I was actually having a good yarn to Eugene, so I forgot to take a great number of photos for this one. And so we've missed quite a bit of the action already, I think. These Palace Guard had seen off a charge from the Chariot Legion and then destroyed them. These other Palace Guard up here have charged out of the wood to take on a giant. Meanwhile, Eugene had sent the Goblin Rebel forward, so the Horde has attacked the Wizard here, and the Legion has charged into my Palace Guard. My Sea Guard have taken 8 wounds. I think most of those were as a response to war machines. Elsewhere, out of sight here though, my Draken Lord had taken out the Fleabag Riders and then gone hunting war machines in the backfield as well. And I'm not sure if this is brave or foolhardy, but I threw the Palace Guard forward. They did 6 wounds on the giant, and then the other giant came across to support her mate. And so that was a lot of giant attacks coming in at the Palace Guard. But my plan here was just to try and slow the giants down a wee bit while I tried to deal with the Rebel. These guys are only unit strength 1 each, so I wanted to try and get rid of the Rebel if I could. And I don't think anyone's surprised with the outcome there. The Giants killed the Palace Guard, both advanced, and I think they both rolled a 5 to see how far they advanced, which meant that they had just moved into the flank of the Draken Horde. So in my turn, the Drakons charged this giant in the flank and killed him. The Quicksilver Lancers up here have dealt with the Fleabag Riders on that side as well. So it became a bit of a grind fest round the hill. The other unit of Palace Guard took on the Legion of Goblins. I took 5 wounds at this stage. The Goblins are on 6. Over here, the other Goblins are fighting the Sea Guard. They've taken about 5 wounds so far. The Sea Guard are on 8, and Eugene's thrown the Trolls in for some support. But out of sight from here, the Draken Lords are flying around dealing with the rock lobbers, trying to kill those as quickly as I can. This must be about turn 4, I think. The Drakon Rider killed the giant, and then along with that must have been turn 3, then along with the Stormwind Cavalry, they both have charged into the Goblin Legion, which was sitting on 6 wounds. War Trombone has been sniping away at my various units and causing a bit of mischief. The Trolls have come charging in to support the Rebel here and have wavered the Sea Guard. So yeah, lots of action in the middle. Unfortunately, I don't think I've got any shots of what was going on out on the flanks of the game. And here we have things at the end of the turn. The Sea Guard who are wavered, they're on 20 wounds at present, so That's only a couple short of their nerve. I'd thrown the king head, came zooming around from behind the house to try and support them. I've done quite a bit of damage to the horde here, but not enough to really seriously damage. But this I was quite happy with. I had the Legion up to 18 wounds now. I think its nerves about 27, so I'm getting there. The trombones have turned. You can see just up here I've got my 2 Dracons. So this is about the end of turn 5, I think. So up here we've got a troll that's controlling this area. So that's 1 point to Eugene. Eugene's got 3, 5, 9 points in the central area, and I've currently got 4, 7, 10, I think. So I'm actually winning and controlling this area. Up here, he's only got the trombones. I've killed the war machines, so I'm actually controlling that section of the table that's worth 2 victory points. So I'm currently sitting on 2, 3, 4 victory points to 1 for Eugene, and this is at the end of turn 5. So not saying it's in the bag, but I was hoping if I carry on the way I've been going that I could take this one. And I'll show you what happened in turn 6 in a minute. But what we've got here is the horde sitting on 20 wounds. We've got the Legion here sitting on 30 wounds. The Dracons, rather than continuing to fight the Legion, who had gone, I think they'd decided to fight the Stormwind, I flew over them, charged into the trolls, got them on about 9 or 10 wounds, maybe, or 8 or 9, didn't break them. So the Dracons ended up stuck here, and I'll show you on the next slide where things really fell apart. This was the very last dice roll of turn 6 for me, when my Stormwind and Silver Breeze had both smashed back into the Legion that was sitting on 30 wounds and was devastated. My very last dice roll on turn 6 was double ones. So the Legion was devastated, but they weren't wavered or anything. And unfortunately, I also then rolled for a turn 7. So talk about snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory. I decided I had it in the bag, so instead of just killing the Legion and getting the points there, I charged the Dracons into the trolls, didn't kill them. As you can see there, there's at least 30 wounds on the Legion of Goblins. This is turn 7 now. The Stormwind and the Silver Breeze have both charged the Goblins there. The Giantess, she's just charged into the rear of my Dracons. The Dracons die. These Goblins have 15 attacks instead of 30 because they're devastated. They did 4, 5 wounds on my Silver Breeze maybe out of those 15 dice, needing 5s to hit. Killed the Silver Breeze. So suddenly I'm down to 3 points in this area versus 4, 7, 9, 10. So suddenly the center quarter or center sixth, whatever it's called, is now the Goblins. So that's 2 points to the Goblins. They've got an extra point where those trolls were. The only thing that I could do, because the trolls had realized at the end of turn 6 that I actually controlled the important section. The other regiment of trolls up the top here had moved into this quarter, so I no longer was controlling that one. So rather than having two points in the bag, all I could do was fly the Dracons into this quarter for 1 point and into a quarter over here for another point. So I went from a 4-1 to a 3-2, mainly because the Legion didn't die. So the very last dice roll at the turn of end of turn 6, completely changed the game on its head and helped Eugene to take the victory in the end. So it was a great game. I lost it, but I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Eugene was another really top opponent. Had a lot of fun, had a few laughs, and we had a great game. And it just shows you, to me, the importance of keeping your eye on the ball. The Dracons didn't have to charge the Trolls here. I should have played it safe. I shouldn't have just taken the glory charge, really. I didn't need to do it. And as it turned out, it came back to bite me and turned the game from a probable victory to a definite defeat. And there we have it. Victory to the Goblins, 3-2. I somehow managed to, as I said, wrestle defeat out of the jaws of victory on that one, but a top game, thoroughly enjoyed it. And there we go, from the starting position. So these guys came charging down here. These guys came charging through that way. The Giants came through there. So right through the game, the Goblins put pressure on. I thought I responded pretty well and actually thought I had the game under control for quite a bit of the game, actually. But as it turned out, those dice, sometimes they decide that they just don't want to be your friend. So can't complain about the game at all. We both played well, enjoyed it. We both took our chances when they arrived. I thought I played well, getting rid of the flea bags, which were a major threat out here and again out here, and then using my flyers to get in and deal with the war machines. The Dracon down here came down here, jumped over there, and then came through this way to take out a couple. But in the end, just wasn't quite enough to win the game for me. So very well played, Eugene. Thoroughly enjoyed playing you. That boosted Eugene into securing third place, and I came fourth after him. But I'd like a rematch one day, because it was a really enjoyable game. And in fact, all my games are enjoyable, and that's what I'm enjoying about Kings of War. The rules are pretty tight. There's not too many disagreements. We very rarely have to look up the rules. It's the odd thing that we do. People still do get stuck on or forget, and I'm as guilty as anyone for that. But overall, it's a good tight rule set that makes for fun, enjoyable games, and thoroughly enjoyed my weekend. So thanks to all my opponents. Thanks very much to Josh, who took over responsibilities for organising it. It ran really smoothly, did a great job, and looking forward to running our Oamaru Onslaught again in July, and hoping to be able to get 10 or 12 players down there and keep building interest in Kings of War. And so, just when you thought you were finished, I'd just like to finish actually with a few thoughts on the elf army that I took. So let's go back and have a look at my army list. So let's just have a quick review of my army and the different units I took and how they went. I took 2 Palace Guard regiments purely because I was worried about the footprint of a horde. I thought a horde of Sea Guard and a horde of Palace Guard were going to be really hard to maneuver. Mark showed me how well you can maneuver hordes when he used his orcs, but I was worried about opening myself up to flanks and things and being quite hard to maneuver. And I thought the regiment size, they've still got reasonable nerve, they're nice and maneuverable, and they can zip in and get in flanks. What I need to practice doing though is the angles that I'm placing my units on. I've still got a tendency, coming from historic wargaming, to want to line my units up in nice straight ranks and point towards the enemy. And Kings of War, you're better off being at, say, a 20 or 25 degree angle, so that when the units hit you, they have to align, and it actually opens their flanks up to other units. Josh tends to do it well with his Goblin Rebel chaff units, and it's an area that I do need to keep working on. Sea Guard Horde, really happy with how they went. They were solid. They got flattened in a couple of games, a bit embarrassingly so by the Orcs in a single turn, but overall they provided a really solid platform to work my army off. The shooting wasn't that effective. I didn't expect it to be, really. It was just something else to roll a few dice and keep people thinking more than anything. If they did any damage, as far as I was concerned, that was a bonus. Quicksilver Lancers, the upgraded version of the Stormwind Cavalry. I really like this unit. They've got nimble, they've got better nerve than a regular Stormwind Cavalry regiment, very maneuverable, hard hitting for elves, and a great unit. I would probably never go home without leave home without them. The Silver Breeze Regiment, on the other hand, I was a bit underwhelmed with, and it was probably the general in charge rather than the regiment itself. A wee bit like Kingdoms of Men, that sometimes the scouts can be hard to use when it's not that many points more for a regiment of knights. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a wee bit the same with the Silver Breeze. Now that the Quicksilver Lancers have nimble, I think that for me they replace that nimble flanking force. Didn't use their bows half as often as I thought I would. At least 3, probably 4 games I wanted to use them as medium cavalry to charge in and support another unit. And so for me, for 15 points extra, I can upgrade them to a regiment of regular Stormwind cavalry. They're going to lose nimble, they're going to lose their bow shots, but actually I think the way I want to play, having 2 medium cavalry regiments would be more effective, because the number of times I needed to throw them in as a support regiment, and they don't have any thunderous or anything, so they were okay. They weren't great, and yeah, they're the one unit that I'm looking at replacing. Draken Rider Horde, loved how they worked game after game. Still getting the hang of using flyers effectively, but they hit hard, they look good on the table, and they provided a good focal point for my army as well. Maybe I'll try the regiments that are nimble with the formation. We will see, but the Draken Rider Horde, I can't see myself leaving home without them anytime soon. Elven King, zipping around with his sharp blade, throwing his 5 dice here, there, everywhere. I didn't give him the duelist upgrade. Didn't really have him fighting characters that much anyway. Again, one thing I'm considering is just downgrading him to a prince rather than a king, which would free up about 60 odd points. And the reason I'm doing that, or considering that, is just the way that Mark used his sort of crusher or crudger, the orc hero, to pin down my Drakon riders for 90 odd points. Not the world's cheapest chaff, but I think that he could have a bit of value added to the list by just using him in that way. So I'm going to experiment with a prince. True Drakon, the 2 Drakon Lords, one with the boomstick. Really enjoyed using these 2 units. They're probably the world's wimpiest dragon riders. Be really good to see them have an extra attack maybe, but can't see that happening. 5 attacks isn't anything to write home about, but getting 10 extra attacks on a flank, then they're starting to be more interesting. So I think the boomstick was a bit of a wrong choice for magic items there. My original idea was to zip around in behind, spend a turn or 2 lightning bolting, or later in the game just sniping off things at a distance if I needed to. What I think would have been a better option would be to give the Sea Guard Horde the Hammer of Measured Force, just against those for instance, those orcs that are defense 5. That's going to even up the playing field a wee bit and make them more solid. The 2 wizards with the lightning bolt, one with the inspiring talisman, they come highly recommended. I like lightning bolt 5 when you re-roll the ones. It'd be good to find the extra points for a couple of different spells. I'd really like to add a Bane chant to them if I can. Adding Bane chant would be quite quite good in some of the grindy combats, and I always knew that it was a bit of a trade-off. Do I take the boomstick? Do I go for a Bane chant, or do I take the hammer of measured force with the last 20 points I had? But overall, liked the army, liked the way it played very differently to my ogres. When my ogres get in trouble, my siege breakers just stand there and take it. Manny the Mammoth just stands there stomping things and hardly ever dies. So I have really solid core units in the ogre army. I never felt comfortable in that kind of same way with the elves, that when the wheels start falling off with the elf army, it really does fall off. But it's an army of maneuver and trying to open up flank attacks, and often in parts of the battlefield that your opponent's not expecting it. And so from that point of view, I thoroughly enjoyed using this army. It was a lot of fun. And one way to try out a new army is just to throw it in a competition and see how you go. So they ended up getting fourth, but wasn't that far off winning 4 games as opposed to the 2 that I ended up winning. Going into it, I was hoping to I wanted to win 2 games, and I was hopeful that I might have been able to win 3. And that last game against Eugene could have gone either way, right down to the last turn or so. And so I nearly got that 3rd win. Learned lots. There was lots of mistakes, and that's why I like doing these reports, is it gives me a chance to look at the battlefield, look at what I did, look at what my opponent did, and look at what I could do different next time. So they're kind of a bit of a training manual for me. So thank you very much for watching these. Hope you've enjoyed them. Hope you may have taken away a couple of things. I'm not the world's greatest Kings of War general, but I'm thoroughly enjoying trying to improve my ability and prowess at the game. So look forward to my next report. Hopefully I'll have a game against Josh and his Goblins, or Gordon and his Kingdoms of Men soon. So thanks very much. Take care, and ka kite anō.